Hello and welcome. My name is Zafar Iqbal, and you're watching the Mojo story. There is a big breaking news that's happening right now. The Supreme Court, the American Supreme Court, has in fact passed on a big order. The US Supreme Court has struck down a significant portion of President Trump's tariff regime, ruling 6-3 that the International Emergency Economic Powers Act does not grant the president authority to impose tariffs. Now, remember, Trump has been pushing for these tariffs for many months now. He's been imposing tariffs unilaterally on all the countries. There was a long exchange between America and India as far as the issue of tariffs was concerned, and he has been putting up those tariffs according to his own wishes to all those countries. To get a sense of what that means, we are today joined by Prasad Duari. Welcome to Mojo Story, Prasad Saab. If you can help us understand that these tariffs we have been talking about for so long, how significant is today's decision?
Hi, Zafar. Thank you for calling me. Yes, this is a very big decision, and to an extent, this was also expected decision. A lot of people, a lot of companies in the US and around the world were expecting the decision to be ruled this way. So, in that respect, it's not as much a big surprise, but a relief that this has actually happened finally. Everyone was expecting this ruling to come out anytime because the Supreme Court was in recess until the 18th, I think. And they came back to work yesterday, and today they passed the order. This is very big because fundamentally what happened is when President Trump imposed these tariffs, he had to do so by using an executive order, thereby bypassing the authority of the legislative authority of Congress. So any revenue collections in the United States is a legislative power which rests with the Congress. And what Trump did is President Trump used an Emergency Powers Act and passed an executive order randomly imposing tariffs at whatever percentage he felt on whatever number of goods on different countries using IEEPA. Now, a bunch of US importers, US companies who were importing all these goods from different countries, they were all small businessmen mostly. They were feeling the impact of the tariffs, and therefore they said they collectively went and sued the US government saying these tariffs were illegal. And then there were the cases, they won the cases in all the lower courts, and then it finally, from the Federal Court of Appeals, it went all the way up to the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court heard the arguments in November, and after that they reserved their judgment, and it came today. And it's amazing. The judgment struck down the tariffs 6-3 out of the 9 Supreme Court justices. 6 of them voted in favor of striking it down. 3 of them wanted to hold these tariffs. And of the 6 people who voted these down, 3 of them were elected by the Republican presidents, of which 2, in fact, Neil Gorsuch and Amy Coney Barrett. Both of these justices were actually elected to the Supreme Court nominated to Supreme Court by President Trump himself. So the Chief Justice, who is a Republican, John Roberts, and these 2 justices who are Republican appointed justices went along with the Democrat appointed judges to rule against the tariffs and struck them down 6-3. And they basically said in the arguments presented, the US government could not use any statute or any law by which they had the powers to impose tariffs. Tariffs basically being revenue to the United States government was a function of the US Congress. So that's what happened. Implications of this, it's very hard hitting. Number one, until December 31st, $160 billion of tariffs were collected already by the US Customs. January numbers are still not out. They're probably likely to be an additional 25 billion. So it's about $185 billion of tariffs that have been collected, which number one have, in fact, it'll be more than that because we are already 20 days into the month of February as well. So everything collected until last night will have to be refunded back to the people who paid these.
That's a very important point, that all this has to be refunded. That makes it extremely
Yeah.
important. And is there a possible time span within which that refund will happen now?
It is expected that these refunds have to be done within 30 days, but it is possible that the US government might use some intelligent jugglery or some other lingo to try and either delay it or basically give a credit and apply that in future, against any future taxes that these companies might have to pay, which could be adjusted against these. Nobody knows the mechanism as to how this is all going to pay out. But the fact is, this 180, 200, close to $200 billion has to be refunded almost immediately. That's number one. Number two, what happens to a lot of countries, EU, UK, Japan, South Korea, Pakistan, Bangladesh, all these countries, they have gone ahead and signed these tariff agreements. They have inked these agreements. We don't know what happens to those agreements that were signed. But the big benefit for India is India has not signed up for any agreements.
You're right.
There have only been negotiations, multiple rounds. We have stretched it out all the way. And then finally, last week or 10 days back, I think we all covered this in Mojo, that both President Trump and Prime Minister Modi agreed on a framework. So there was just an announcement, but the actual details are still being worked out. In fact, as we speak, the Indian Trade Secretary is physically in the US to finalize these tariff rates and then finally sign them into a law or an executive order. Again, it would have had to be an executive order only. Then they were targeting, I think, the mid of March by when this could get done. Now, I don't think India needs to even bother signing this. I think we are all going to go into a state of pause and then see how this all plays out. So that is the second implication. The third one is that it is possible that he will try to use other methods to try and reintroduce these tariffs. But none of those methods are going to be easy because first he has to prove to the courts and get an advance ruling from the courts that it is legal to impose. And even if the courts give him that authority under whatever sections, they are only going to be a finite period of time for the tariffs, which is that he can collect those tariffs for 3 months or maybe 6 months, things like that. That's what the other options that are available to him are. So it's going to be a very cumbersome process of proving that, because when he goes to courts to try and prove that he needs his authority to impose these tariffs again, then the same people who sued the US government are going to go back to the court and get a stay on that. So this is going to drag on. It's not going to be click like this and then it happens again. So it's a very long drawn process. So I think it's a huge setback for the president. That too coming today.
It's a big blow for him in the sense that Trump, the tariff is the favorite word according to him. It is his favorite word, and he would impose tariff according to his own whims. Only yesterday, last night, he gave this press conference in that Board of Peace when he was talking, pointing to Pakistan. He said that they got that deal. Pointing to other countries, and he's mentioning about tariffs, that how he used tariff as a method to bring peace in the subcontinent, to stop the two countries from. So it's a big blow to Trump and his credibility and the way that he has been projecting himself as the person who is bringing money into America through tariffs.
Yeah, I think it's a big blow to him, both internationally as well as domestically, because his MAGA base was very, very excited that he's generating this extra revenue for the United States. And so this is a big blow to his own base. The base is already separating from him and is angry with him because of his promise of releasing all the Epstein documents, which he delayed. And now that is coming out. So the MAGA base is upset already. Now, to add to that, you have this tariffs being struck down. So that's a domestic wound that he's going to be nursing for a long time. Added to that, he has a big loss of face internationally because, any international leader looks into their eyes, he can't even use the word tariff now because it's illegal. Right. So this is a huge setback. And if you remember, he came to power. He was sworn in as a president the second time last year on the 21st of January. This is his 13th month, and this entire 13 months have been defined only by tariffs.
Absolutely.
And so the entire 13 months of work that he has done and the narrative he has built is all completely washed down. So it is personally a very big blow for him.
And has the court now effectively told him, particularly, and to future president, that tariff power lies squarely with the Congress and it is not a prerogative of the president that he can pass an executive order and impose tariffs?
Yeah, and in fact, I was reading the court order that was passed. In that, I'm paraphrasing, it seems like the courts were very upset with Congress, saying that while these powers were taken away from the Congress hid and did not basically try to retain their powers, but they hid and they quietly handed them over to the president, which is illegal in the first place. So yeah, I mean, this is not an easy thing. They have even given a little bit of a scolding, using a sentence or two, even to the Congress. And even if the US Congress now decides to take this replica of what tariffs he has implemented around the world in these 13 months, they don't have the majority because of many Republican members of Congress themselves are against tariffs. So they don't have a majority for this particular issue anyway, which is in fact the reason why he tried using the IEEPA Emergency Powers Act to write executive orders and impose these tariffs, because he knew that if he had gone to Congress, they would never get passed.
It's unprecedented, and it's a big breaking story that we are bringing to our viewers, that Supreme Court in the United States has struck down Trump tariffs. It's a big blow to President Trump, who has been going around the world and imposing tariffs on all countries. It has also strained America's relations with European countries, with Canada, with India. There was friction. There still is dispute on many things. America was getting isolated just because of Trump being very adamant on this issue of tariffs and just going about doing it according to his own wishes without any logic.
Yeah, well, tariff is supposed to be a trade policy instrument. But what happened is Trump used that as well as a foreign policy instrument. And so he shaped his entire second term's United States foreign policy using tariffs for everything. As he claimed, whether it's right or wrong, I don't know. But as he claimed, if he had to stop a war, he used tariffs as a tool. If he had to punish somebody for something else, he would impose that as a tool. If Canada would not accept agricultural goods from the US, then he would impose tariffs on Canada to force them to do so. So he used tariffs as a tool, all-weather tool, to shape a lot of different aspects of American policy, trade policy, foreign policy, relationship with their neighbors, everywhere. So this is, I mean, just taking that tool away from him is a very huge blow, I would say.
Absolutely. It's a huge blow. And what are the options left with Trump now? This comes from Supreme Court, not many options from the legal point of view, because it's come from the top court.
Yeah, I mean, no, he cannot write an executive. When he writes an executive order imposing any kind of levies or tariffs, he has to basically he has to use a particular power that he has, that the Constitution empowers the President of the United States. to be able to impose that. So the executive order has to state that power that he's using. And the Supreme Court primarily in its ruling, in the order, has explicitly stated that the president does not have the powers to impose tariffs.
Right.
That's
That's
it.
that's extremely significant that
Yes, it
the
is.
court has said that in clear terms. Now, what
Yes.
happens to the tariffs that are already collected? Could this refund claim start another round of disputes, trade disputes? Because now that America will have to give back the money, there will be a time span for that. Whatever that time span, it can lead to another cycle of disputes.
Well, what has happened is that in the US markets, there are certain financial instruments that bet on the refunds. So there are certain financial instruments that are actually already trading very high, wherein they bet that these refunds will have to be done, and therefore there are no refunds. So they jump into the middle to try and handle these refunds. So this is going to create a huge mess. I mean, I have not checked since we last started speaking. I have not checked, but the markets, Dow Jones was already up 200 points in 10 minutes after the Supreme Court order came, and I'm sure it's much higher now, because we are back to the old days of free trade that America always had, at least incoming. So this has a multi-dimensional impact on many fronts, for the US. So we'll have to
It will
wait
have
and see.
it will have an impact on not just American market but markets across the world. This is very significant.
Absolutely. It will, because today is, unfortunately, it's Friday. Indian markets are already closed, but on Monday when our markets open, they'll go crazy, because now we are back to free trade again, right? The Canadian markets would also be reacting already. The Toronto Exchange, I have not checked, but I'm sure the Toronto Exchange is up, because under these powers, the US Canada relationship took a big beating. And if you remember the speech that Mark Carney gave in Davos last month, about middle countries, and how they need to now diversify and not depend on their long-term reliable partner, because that partner is no longer reliable. So Canada took a huge hit because of these tariffs. Not just the tariffs, but the relationship itself took a beating. And now I'm sure all that is going to be restored to normalcy. So I think this is huge. This is massive.
Absolutely. And this could also impact the politics and the standing of President Trump, because
Yeah.
right from the first day, uh, he has been talking about tariffs, and this is his favorite subject. That he's come with an agenda that he has to impose tariffs on the world, and that is now that balloon has just blasted, and all of that is over now. How is he going
Yeah,
to restore his
Supreme Court
politics?
literally, the Supreme Court literally snatched the balloon away from his hand and burnt it.
Right, which is
So
which is which is very important. We'll have to, of course, wait. How is he going to respond? But he would have also factored in all those things, because this was on for some time. He must have come up with some strategy. He must have thought about some strategy. But it's not going to be so easy now. It's a loss of face and a big blow to Trump and his policies.
yep, that's right. It's not going to be easy, number one. Number two, even if he finds certain sections under which he can try and retain them, they have to be for a finite period of time, in terms of months, not even years. So he can do this maybe for 3 months, maybe for 6 months, and that's it.
Yeah.
So it's not going to be easy to reimpose these tariffs, just like he did it last year. This is going to be a long drawn method. So we'll have to wait and see how this plays out. And I'm sure there'll be more news coming out when the entire full, multiple page order is released. We'll all have to go through that and digest that a little bit. And then we'll know the full extent of the damage.
Absolutely, and we'll have to wait for that, and also we'll have to wait for Trump to speak on this. Of course, he will react. He reacts to everything, and we'll have to also wait for the international reactions, which would be coming fast now. But thanks so much, Prasad Saab, for helping us understand what it means, what it implies for India, what are its implications, how significant it is. Thanks to our viewers also for tuning in and for watching the Mojo story. Thank you.
Thank you, Zafar.
It's great to see you here. Thank you for watching our work. If you haven't subscribed yet, don't forget to click the bell icon and subscribe to Mojo Story and support independent, robust journalism.